Hello, everybody. We begin Mesechta Brias Kadmon in MISHNAS CHASIDIM, and we start at Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph. Obaderech Yerida. So, as this kav was coming from Or Ein Sof within the Makom Atzimtzum, Heir B'Chalalahu, it gave light within this area. Igul Echad Sha'or, one circuit of light, Rachak Me'at Me'or Ein Sof, a little bit distant from Or Ein Sof itself. In other words, as the kav comes in, the kav cannot begin to make the first sphera, the first circular light, right next to the Makom Atzimtzum, because then the first circuit of light would be like Or Ein Sof. So rather, it has to distance itself a little bit within the Makom Atzimtzum, and then make the first circuit of light, which is the first sphera, which is known as Igulim. And then the kav continued going, and it made another circuit of light. And that's how it continued to go and shine, one circuit after another circuit within this Makom Atzimtzum, within this area which HaKadosh Baruch Hu withdrew his light. So that's how the light was coming down. Until HaKadosh Baruch Hu surrounded this area with 10 igulim. Until HaKadosh Baruch Hu surrounded this area with 10 circuits, 10 igulim. Eagle b'toch eagle, one eagle within the next eagle. And each one of these igulim, these circuits of light, has in it a or panimi, or which is within this circuit of light, within the kli of this light. And then there's a or makif hachozer. Makif HaChozer is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he shows this light, the light is so powerful, so it goes within the circuit, but then it comes out. Because the circuit itself, the area which HaKadosh Baruch Hu made for this circuit can't contain this light. So some of the light must come out. A portion of the light can stay in, that's called Or Panimi. But a portion of this light cannot stay in, and that's called Or Makif HaChozer. The light comes in and jumps back out, just like you take a lot of water and put it in a cup. Some of the water will not be able to remain in the cup, it'll come out. V'yatza b'rosho. So some of this light comes out from the top of the circuit, from the top of the sphera. Milvad or makif hayashar habola milmayla she'ein nichnas bo klal is aside from the or makif hayashar. Or makif hayashar is that Hashem is shofea on olam haspheros, and it's such a powerful light that is bichlal not going into the kelim. It's bichlal not interested in going into the kelim. It's just a shefa of or, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu gives miyodei amleya psucha, and so therefore a little bit goes in the kli, some of it jumps out of the kli, and then there's some of it that Kadosh Baruch Hu envelopes and draws down across all of these igulim without going in the kelim at all. So that's what he's saying. Milvad or makif hayashar abalav milmayla she'ein nichnas bo klal. Aside from the or makif hayashar, this direct external light, which will not be nislavish in the kelim at all. And this is the way it will be with all the spheros that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will create afterwards. They will all have a or panimi, or makif hachozer, and they will also have or makif hayashar, which envelopes the spheros lagamri. And fine. So that's what he's saying. And this is the pattern that will be with all the spheros. That's the way it will be with all the spheros. Base. All of these igulim have in it 10. And their name, the general name of these 10 circuits, these 10 vessels of light containing light, they're called spheres, but also the 10 within each of these 10 are also 10. That's what he's saying here. Ushman bechlal v'chein beprat. Their name in general and individually, who Sfiros. This is their names in every place. Kaser, Chachma, Bina, Chasek, Vur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchus, Hari, Eser. They are the 10 spheres that we know of. Kaser, Chachma, Bina, Chasek, Vur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchus. You see here he's not counting Das, and he's going to explain soon why he does not count Das. And Bipashus, I give you a little bit of a tip here. It's because he's counting Keser. When you count Keser, you don't count Das. But we're going to look into this a little bit more. Mishnah Gimel. And since the sphere of Keser is always an intermediary between the highest level and the next level up, again, and since Keser is always the intermediary, that connects the higher darga with the lower darga, Keser is at the height of one darga, getting ready for the next darga up. Because the Pnimius of Keser, and not just Keser, but the Pnimius of all spheres, which is called the Vak of the spheres, the lower part of the spheres, which is the Midas and Malchus of the Sphera. In other words, if you take a Sphera and cut it in half, you have the Mochen of the Sphera, the cognition of the Sphera, and the emotion and activity of the Sphera, which is the lower half of the Sphera, the Vak. Gar, Mochen, Vak, emotion. Cognition and emotion. All the spheres are broken down to Gar and Vak. So the Pnimius of each Sphera is the Vak of the Sphera. The Vav Kitzavos, the 6 Midos and Malchus included. So that's true with every Sphera, and especially true with Keser. So he's saying here, because the Pnimius of Keser has in it the highest darga for the lower spheres. The Vak of Keser is the highest darga for that unit, that current unit of spheres that we're dealing with. But the Gar of Keser, but in the Gar of Keser, the Keser Chachma Bina of Keser, it has in it the lower darga of the next realm up. In other words, the next realm up, the first place that it meets is the Bechina of Keser. So that's why the Gar of Keser, the Gimel Rishonis of Keser, is very muchly so like the next world up, or the next realm up. This is not like the rest of the spheres underneath Keser that are not a mimutza, that are not an intermediary. That the chitzonius of the sphera, the gar of the sphera, the gimel rishonis of the sphera, and the vak of the sphera, shave, they're both from the current unit of the spheres. That it is from their own unit, it is from their own realm, and not from a higher darga. All of the spheres, except for Keser, their gar and their vak, are all shaykh to that realm or that olam or that parts of that we're dealing with. That's mibechinas atzmam, mibechinaselyonam, from their darga, their current darga, and not from a higher darga. Lefichach ein seder minions. This order that we said that we included Keser is not ela mitzar pnimius asfiras shavu b'chol ha'eser. That's only with the pnimius of the. That's only with the pnimius of the spheres, the vak of the spheres, which is equal by all of the 10 spheres. So when we're counting Keser, we're counting the vak of Keser, because the vak of Keser is shaykh to that current unit that we're dealing with, or that realm, or that olam that we're dealing with. But aval kasher yimnu es spheres mitzad chitzoniyusam. But when we count the 10 spheres mitzad der chitzoniyus, mitzad der gar, the highest 3 spheres, ein reishis minyanam ela mechachma. The beginning of their number that we count is only from Chachma. We don't start from Keser. She'ein Chetzenes HaKeser Ke'erkam. Because the Gar of Keser is really Shaykh to the next world up. Ela Yishar Sham. The Gar of Keser is the Sheresh for the current unit of spheres that we're dealing with. So so Hashem, who takes the Chetzonius of Keser away from their unit, since Chetzonius HaKeser is too high, how does HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring about that there is 10 spheres? Hu yashlimam le'eser. He will complete it to 10. V'zehi asher nikra das. That is called the Sphera of Das. Because shechetzoniuso hu chetzonius aroy the keser mibechinas shara spheros. The chetzonius, the gar of das, meaning we have chachma, bina, and das. The gar of das, the gimel rishonis of das, is on such a darga that it could be considered in a replacement for the gar of keser. And that's what he says here, that the chetzonius adas is ruy to be the chetzenius of Keser. Mibechinas shar haspheros. Unlike the other spheros don't have that mila. The mila of das is that chetzenius adas, which is the gar of das, is so high that it could be a replacement for the gar of Keser. And l'chayra, if you ask a question, how could this be? How do we see this? We could bring a mashal. A lot of times when we are thinking about something, so we have the will is like the keser, and we bring it through chachma and bina, we understand and we grapple with the will that we had, the desire that we had, but when we come to full acknowledgement and full understanding and passion, and we ignite this understanding and bring it towards our emotion, we have the chance to right then and there recognize if what we have understood is what we really had in mind in the first place. That's das. Das is that we come to the understanding that what we've now understood, that was the keser of what we had in mind from the start. And that's the way it's explained in some Sfarim, like the Taloros and some others. But das is the verification that the keser is indeed being carried out. So that's how we could see in a sense how Chetzenius Hadas is comparable to the Chetzenius HaKeser. V'das and in Nekedem HaChesed, and this das is numbered before Chesed. Lefisha Pnimiuso Yushar Shapnimis Shashavas Spheres Shel Emanuel Lamata Hamaschili Mechesed. Because the Pnimius of das is the root, the unseen root of all the 6 spheres from Chesed until Malchus. Hamaschilim Chesed, and therefore it is not numbered within the vak of the spheres, because the vak of das, the emotive factor of das, the emotional factor of das, is the emotion of all the spheres. When we get to das, to truly ignite and set aflame what we've understood, that emotional aspect is already current with the rest of the spheres. What isn't current is the acknowledgement and understanding that the keser is really being carried out, which is the gar of keser. So that's why Pnimius Adas is just the vak, which is not counted because we count the spheres instead. So the Pnimius Adas is not counted. Kiein loy Pnimius pradik shara spheres elo sherish Pnimius ka'amor, because das has no individual Pnimius, but it's only a sherish Pnimius for the rest of the spheres. Nimtzu shasferes hamasav v'leitesha mechatzoni yusam. So you find now that we have 10 spheres mitzad chitzonius, by virtue of their higher dargos, because kiadas mashlimim le'eser. Even though we don't count chetzenius hakeser, we put in its place chetzenius hadas. V'lo echad asar. And why don't we have 11 spheres? If we're counting das, we should have 11 spheres. And the answer is no. Mitzad Pnimiyusam, because we don't count the Pnimius of Das. Ki ein das b'chlalam. Pnimius adas is not counted within the rest of the spheres. Ki ein das b'chlalam, ki hu meshuna mehem. Because Das is not in that category. It is a little bit different from them. And how is it different from them? Ki ein das b'chlalam, ki hu meshuna mehem. Das is not counted, Pnimius Adas is not counted as a sphera because it is different from the rest of them. Das is a shirish for the rest of them, and it is not considered a sphera. That concludes Perek Rishon from Mesechta Brias Kadmon.